So what is a logline and a treatment? They're actually part of a bigger process, the script writing process. You see, when you're creating a script, you don't just create dialogue and description. You actually have to start with a lengthy rough draft process. Most authors start by creating a working title. That's usually 1 to 3 words that you're going to use to refer to your project during the creation period. A step that's really important before you get on to the script and the logline and the treatment is the theme. I actually think this is one of the most important parts of creating a logline and treatment. The theme are the 5 to 9 words that are going to become the central idea of the entire film. It's ultimately going to be what you're super passionate about and what you're going to write about. You want to squeeze it into 5 to 9 words. The theme is usually an idea, like maybe you believe that all men are truly evil beings. Or maybe siblings are born to be rivals. Whatever it is that you're passionate about, you're going to create a theme or 5 to 9 words. And then I recommend cutting it out and putting it up on your screen. So every time you get lost in this process that we're about to go through, you can look back at that theme. Well, now this is where you first get onto your logline. I actually think that you should come back and do the logline after you create your treatment. Even though logline is something that you usually present first, it's easier to write after the treatment has been completed. A logline is 1 to 2 sentences that sum up your entire movie. My recommendation is to put it into 1 sentence. What it is when you condense your story into 15 or 20 words: the protagonist, the antagonist, the situation, and the problem. Many times this was called an elevator pitch because the idea was if you got stuck in an elevator with someone who could fund your movie, you would want to give them everything about your movie in 1 sentence. And hopefully that sentence is extremely interesting so that they give you money and you can make your movie. That brings us to the treatment. The treatment can also be called the pitch. A pitch and a treatment are a compressed retelling of the story, of your story. The trick is how you do the compressing so that the most enticing elements are transmitted to the reader. For this class, the treatment should be at least 9 sentences, and we really don't want to go more than 15 sentences. It's a beginning, a middle, and end of your story that you'll eventually use to write your script. The treatment answers very specific questions. Let's go look at some of those questions. The treatment is the beginning, the middle, and the end of your movie. The beginning tells the who, what, where, and when of your script. During this part of your treatment, we learn who or what the opposing force is and the complication that the character is going to overcome. Then there's what I like to call the uh-ohs and oh-poops. What was going on to solve the complication? How did it fall apart? Because it always falls apart. These events are chronological. That means in order. And they have a cause and effect relationship on your movie. The end is where we learn the main character's plan for solving his or her problem, what that plan looks like, and when it is attempted, the final outcome of the story. First, you should start with a sentence that shares the main character and the general setting. Long ago, in a galaxy far, far away, there was a boy named Luke Skywalker. Usually, we also get a glimpse of the villain or the opposing force that it is against or getting in the way of the main character. In this case, if we're going to continue with Star Wars, you have the evil Empire and Darth Vader, and we'd put that into a sentence, and we'd say a little bit about how they're getting in Luke's way. Finally, you get to one of the most important parts of your entire treatment, the main problem of the story that the character must overcome. Usually, the main character has some sort of physical goal that he or she has in mind. For example, Luke Skywalker has to go off and defeat Darth Vader and rescue the princess. Many times, however, the character has a flaw that's driving that problem. In this case, it's Luke Skywalker's self-esteem. Luke Skywalker is in possession of something called the Force, and he doesn't know if he's strong enough to use it to beat Darth Vader and rescue the princess. it's always more interesting when the main character has some sort of concrete goal in mind, like saving the princess, but also some flaw within him or herself that he or she is trying to overcome, like learning how to use the Force and overcome his low self-esteem. So, the middle is the longest part of your treatment. Usually, when a character goes on an adventure to solve a problem, he or she doesn't get it right the first time, so the character does something, and it falls apart. Next, the character reacts to the setback he or she has just experienced, and we see an adjustment. The character still has the goal in mind, and is adjusting his or her plan to reach that goal. And, in good movie fashion, something else is going to go wrong. Once again, the character reacts to this new setback. How will he or she adjust? And what's going to go wrong again? If you really think about it, most movies are like this. They are a series of plans that usually go wrong until we get to the end. This is where the main character comes up with a plan to solve his or her problem. I hope by now you've realized that the middle of your treatment should be the longest part of your treatment. Although we're using the word sentence, sentence 4, 5, and 6 can each be a series of sentences. And remember, as your character comes up with plans, each plan should be different. So, in sentence 4, when the character takes the first action and has to adjust, make sure that what he or she does in sentence 5 is completely different. Otherwise, your movie will be boring and monotonous. Sentence 7 is all about the main character's expectation. In other words, how does the main character believe he or she is finally going to solve the problem? What's the plan in his or her head? Now, just remember, this plan always goes wrong, but they always come up with it. For example, when Luke Skywalker is flying his X-Wing into the Death Star, he probably doesn't imagine that he's going to be the only one left and that Darth Vader will be hot on his tail. He probably thinks he'll be supporting some other guy who will be taking that shot that blows up the Death Star. So, this is the sentence where we describe that plan. Then, in sentence 8, we explain how the plan is executed. Was it successful? Did the main character solve his problem or not, and how? This is where you described what actually happens, and the outcome of the hero's journey. Did Luke Skywalker rescue the princess and blow up the Death Star and take down the evil empire? And what about Luke's self-esteem and his control of the Force? All of this would be shared at this particular part of your treatment. And finally, we see the resolution of the story. How does this look in the last few minutes? Does it come to a genuine conclusion, or do we set ourselves up for a sequel? Like I said, I recommend writing the treatment first, really exploring the ins and outs of your story. Remember, your main character always has a problem. He or she tries to overcome that problem through a series of wacky ideas that usually go wrong, and then we finally see a solution that works or doesn't work at the end. And remember, that solution is never executed the way the hero pictures it in his or her mind. Once you've done this, it's actually easier now to go back and write the logline. Remember, the logline is a one-sentence summary of your script. It's the short blurb in the TV guide that tells you what the movie's about and helps you decide if you're interested in seeing it. And it's that one sentence that will hopefully grab and excite your reader so that they'll give you money. Now, I do have a formula for writing your logline. Here's 3 questions to ask yourself once you're done with your treatment and you're ready to write your logline. First, who is the main character and what does he or she want? Second, who is the villain that's standing in the way of the main character? And third, what is the complication that makes this story unique? I usually like to put in the words, and complications arise. That way you get a sentence like this. A twister carries a young Kansas girl to a magical land called Oz, and complications arise when she must battle mysterious forces to find a way home. If you speak to a producer or director or agent, that person will ask you, what is your script about? And now you have something to say in 30 seconds or less. For example, A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, a young boy takes on an evil empire, and complications arise when he becomes the only person who can stop them. Now, don't forget, every logline in treatment is an exploration of a theme. So, if you're going to write your treatment, or if you've just finished, you want to keep your theme in mind. You want to go over your treatment and make sure the theme that you're choosing to explore is the one that you see all throughout your treatment. Remember, every aspect of your movie will be an exploration of that theme. And again, it should be something you're passionate about. Well, that's it for loglines and treatments. Remember the formulas that I've given you and use them. Try to write your own logline and your own treatment. And when you're done, sit down with a teacher and go over your story. Remember that first draft is never as great as you think it will be, so be open to their criticisms. It's always constructive criticism, and it will only make your story stronger. Next, we'll move on to the script, and we'll look at how we can change your logline and your treatment into one of the greatest scripts ever. Thanks for being the teacher, and I'll see you next time.